Good day, everyone. Thank you for attending our webcast, Digitalize Your Carbon Footprint, where we'll explore how to automate the collection of utility data to streamline GHG emissions calculations and reporting. I'm Matt Duca, Director of Marketing Communications at Linx-AS. I want to go over a few things before we start. Everyone's mic is muted at this time. However, we will take questions at the end. At that time, you can raise your hand within the Teams interface up top, and we'll unmute your line to take the question. Or you can just drop it into the Q&A functionality, and we'll take it from there. The recording of the webcast and the presentation will be provided to you shortly after this session concludes. Now let's take a look at what we'll cover today. For those of you who aren't familiar with Linx-AS, I'll take a minute or two to tell you about us. Then we'll cover the basics on greenhouse gas definitions and calculations. Then we'll move into Clear Standard, a Linx-AS SaaS solution that automates data collection, transformation, and integration of utility data into corporate sustainability and reporting tools. This will include a demo of SAP Emissions Management and SAP Footprint Management. After a few insights on beyond GHGs, we'll close and take your questions. Since 2000, Linx-AS has been helping companies be more what they aspire to be with SAP technology, innovative, sustainable, productive, and profitable. We have 3 consulting practice areas, sustainability, product lifecycle management, and environment, health, and safety, as well as a growing software development division to support those areas. Linx-AS was founded in 2000 as a specialty consulting partner for the then new SAP EH&S solution, working mostly in product compliance and stewardship. We naturally expanded our services into the related area of PLM in 2003. While piling up the implementation experience, we realized that within the SAP platform, there's a lot of opportunity to develop best practice solutions that fill white spaces in the SAP portfolio. So in 2006, we formalized our innovation group to standardize the project accelerators we had developed along the way. 2013 saw us building on our innovation mindset with forays into user experience and mobile development. Since then, we've made significant business investment in leadership, development capabilities, and recently expanded our practice areas with the introduction of Sustainability Consulting Group. The guidepost for our practice is the sustainability thread, which is a focus on helping customers digitalize their sustainability business processes. Due to the cross-functional nature of sustainability initiatives, understanding how master data and the operational or transactional data relate and are mapped to drive KPIs is critical. There are 3 key pillars to sustainability thread. One is sustainable products, which include everything from reducing plastics in packaging to ensuring products contain ethically sourced materials, to informing R&D with life cycle assessment data. Next is carbon and climate, which is our topic today, which at its core is leveraging digital platforms to automate the monitoring, measuring, and sustainability calculations for air, water, and waste. Lastly is environmental, social, and corporate governance, that's ESG data and reporting, which focuses on digitalizing the data streams to move you from reactive reporting to proactive KPI management. So with that said, I'm going to hand it over to the leader of our sustainability group, Klaus Brettschneider. Klaus, you can take it away.
Thank you, Matt. A warm welcome from my side as well to everyone on the call. To introduce myself a little bit, some people will know me about my PLM background, where I'm in since, I don't know, 20 years or so. But maybe people do not know that I actually studied environmental technology in the 90s, just to figure out that back then nobody could make money out of this. And this is how I ended up in the PLM space. Since few years, I'm engaged in the sustainability topic again with the Green Global Alliance, some PLM professionals who want to push the PLM business into more sustainability. I freshed up my knowledge about sustainability at Harvard with some certificates, and now run the sustainability practice at Linx-AS. Before we go into what Clear Standard is doing, I thought it's important to introduce you to the concept of greenhouse gas. I know this is maybe boring for some people. They know about it, but I think it's important to understand the concept of greenhouse gas calculation and how this comes together to also understand where the value is for Clear Standard. So the greenhouse gas protocol considers the 7 most essential gases and normalizes them according to their global warming potential. Different greenhouse gases can have different effects on the Earth's warming. 2 key ways in this gas differs from each other are their ability to absorb energy and how long they stay in the atmosphere. And this is shown in the global warming potential at the end in the calculation. So if you see on the screen, the calculation of the effects on the greenhouse gases are built on the CO2 element, but we have other greenhouse gases as well. And to normalize these data, we use the global warming potential to calculate and to compare what effect a ton of CH4, for example, has compared to CO2. So all these calculations are important at the end to understand how we can use data to calculate the different scopes and the different impacts of greenhouse gases. The greenhouse gas protocol classifies emission into 4 categories called scopes. Scope 1 covers direct emissions from facilities or vehicles the reporting organization controls. These can come from stationary combustion like heating systems or combustions or production lines where natural gas gets burned, mobile combustions like propane-driven forklifts, process emissions from physical or chemical processes, or fugitive emissions like unintentional release of coolants from cooling systems. Chemical productions create also greenhouse, often involves complex reactions, energy-intensive processes, and diverse feedstocks. Emissions may occur from chemical reactions and byproducts. Accurately quantifying greenhouse gas emissions in chemical manufacturing can be complex and requires detailed process-level data and emission factors. However, organizations can very often use consumption data gathered from invoices or material provisions and processes from invoices to calculate greenhouse gas emissions in most other cases. Emission factors are available for almost all activities and energy carriers. The volume of the consumed energy carrier multiplied by the correct emission factor will translate directly into greenhouse gas emissions in metric tons. That's basically what's shown here on the slide. So we have this kind of activity data, mostly coming from utility bills to know what kind of energy we consume. Then we have the emission factors and can calculate at the end the emissions, the greenhouse gas emissions. And as I said, scope 1 is the direct emission, everything what we create. Scope 2 is all emissions we create by buying energy or steam or coolants, where the emission happens outside of our organization. So a typical example is we buy energy or electricity for our production plant, and the emission happens in the utility company or in the power plant, and scope 2 covers this kind of emissions. The calculation for these kinds of emissions happen the same way. We know the energy consumption from the utility bill. We have emission factors for the different grids and the different areas and regions. And then we can calculate out of this the emissions accordingly. Just to give, so our demonstration, our discussion will be around scope 1 and 2 because they are covered mostly by the utility bills. But just to make a complete picture, there's also scope 3, which is then up and down our supply chain. So this is where you purchase products and they come already with a carbon footprint, and your sales process and all these other things are covered in scope 3. Also a very interesting aspect if it comes to greenhouse gases, and especially if you want to digitalize the calculation of your greenhouse gases, but it's definitely a topic for another time. And last but not least, there is also a scope 4. Not a lot of people talk about it. It's more an academical thing. It's basically if you save greenhouse gases in an area where you do not have any influence. The typical example is the video conference. So if you provide video conference services, you save travel emissions from travel to business meetings, what would not be account to your greenhouse gases or corporate greenhouse gases anyway, but you can claim them because you now avoid them nevertheless. So with the utility data comes a lot of problems or a big challenge because we have to collect all these data from our utility companies. We have them in disparate or different formats, and then have to use them in our calculations or have to transform them in formats that other systems can use them to calculate the greenhouse gases. And this is the big challenge the clear standard will address. So if you just consider your own environment, if you think about how many utility bills your organization receives and has to pay for, if you just have an office, it's maybe an easy thing with a little bit electricity and maybe some heat or so. But if it then goes into a manufacturing plant, you end up quickly with 3 or 4 different utility invoices. And if you count this for each month over 12 months and have several plants, you can imagine how many data you have to collect and how many bills you actually have to scrap to get to the information you need. So this is where Clear Standard comes in. Clear Standard is a layer between the utility companies and your sustainability systems or sustainability processes. Clear Standard collects and transforms the data. It collects the data from the utility companies directly and then transforms and translates to the different business needs. So it will assign tag IDs, it will give timestamps, it will allow you to normalize the data. So as you know, your monthly utility bill will not go from the first to the last of the month. It will be always a little bit in overlap. So it will allow you to normalize this kind of data to then feed them into your system. And Clear Standard can feed this into different systems. Of course, there are the sustainability systems we can use, but there's also other aspects. So for example, you can feed back your information into your invoicing processing if you want to pay your utility bills automatically, or you can integrate it into other third-party products. And because we are focused on SAP, of course, you can feed this kind of information into SAP's sustainability tools or modules from the environment management in S4 over the sustainability footprint manager to the control tower. So Clear Standards sits between these two elements, And we learned quickly in our customer projects that utility is not the only challenge to collect data for your greenhouse gas calculations. So there are other areas where a lot of manual entries are necessary. So we learned quickly that we can extend ClearStandard also into apps on your phone, for example, to monitor or to document specific actions from your employees. For example, if you have a warehouse and you supply propane to a forklift, this can be tracked by an app and can then report it to your greenhouse gases. Or you can use IoT to really measure, for example, water flow or something like this, and then feed these kind of information via ClearStandard directly into your system. This is so the left side of this picture. On the right-hand side, we feed this kind of information in different systems, like sustainability reporting tools or then compliance tools. Currently, we are able to connect to 2 million, roughly 2 million accounts globally. Most of them are in the US. 95% are in the US. And this gives us leverage for over 50 countries where we can pull these data directly into ClearStandard. One aspect also is that with this automation, you can increase the frequency. So currently, the reporting is done mostly on a yearly basis, right? Whenever the greenhouse gas report is due, the data gets collected and the bills get scrapped and the greenhouse gas get calculated. But with this digitalization, with ClearStandard, you will be able to do this on a monthly basis or even on a shorter basis. In some cases, we can reduce the frequency to 15 minutes. It depends, of course, what utility provider, what kind of information they provide, and if this is feasible. But in some cases, we can really increase the frequency and get from an hindsight reporting really to real-time data. Here, a little bit about the architecture of the ClearStandard. So ClearStandard is built on SAP's BTP technology. It is hosted by SAP, but managed in one of our sub-accounts. We utilize SAP's technology entirely. So this goes from the authentication of users to the integration into other systems where we utilize SAP's cloud connectivity. It allows us also to integrate into other BTP modules for process automation or other aspects. So let's see how this works. We have some short demonstration how we can set up ClearStandard. And then how we feed this into the systems. This is a little bit the business scenario. I thought it's good to have a picture what we are actually doing with these data and with these structures in the system. So in this case, we have three utility companies, one with electricity, another with electricity and providing natural gas, and another one, the third one, with electricity and natural gas. And the one feeds electricity into our office building. The second feeds electricity and gas to our manufacturing building, maybe for heating purposes. And the third one feeds electricity and natural gas into our equipment for the manufacturing process. And according to the greenhouse gas standard, all the electricity will end up in scope 2, and all the natural gas emissions will end up in scope 1 as stationary combustion. I'm missing a point here. Yeah, so you can see on the right-hand side, we have two two requirements to fulfill, and this is where clear standard starts. So the first step, what we have to do in clear standard is to define the sustainability program or the requirements we want to fulfill. Then we will see how we establish credentials to the utility providers. The next step will be how we link the provider accounts to GL. This is an optional step you can do, and then we link at the end the compliance scenario to the data. Let's see. So here we can see how we add an additional requirement or two additional requirements, basically the scope 1 and scope 2 aspects to it. So we pick from the emission hub the table 1 for the stationary combustion and table 6 for electricity, and this will set up clear standard with all the templates and the information it needs to process the information. In the next step, we will establish the credentials for the utility providers. It's at the end like you would log into your utility portal anyway. So you add here the utility company, and you use your username and password to log into the system and establish the connectivity between Clear Standard and your utility provider. This will allow Clear Standard to watch your account. So it is not that you have to trigger anything in Clear Standard. That makes also the demonstration a little bit difficult because I show you something what you're not supposed to see at the end anyway. But the Clear Standard will watch the utility companies with a webhook, and as soon a bill will come up for your usage or for you, it will read the information and then provide it to the system. This connectivity takes a little bit time, so to establish the connectivity and then to read the information, it probably takes up a day or so, but then you are able to use the information from your utility companies. The next step is then an optional step. So if you want to use the utility information also to automatically pay bills with your system, you would have to link up the utility account to your GLs in SAP. And this is something we show on the next one. If I can find my mouse, here we are. So we maintain the account and the GL connection. So we add the account here again. And link it up directly to your SAP GL account. And this was for electricity. And we do the same thing for natural gas. So we add the provider. And pick the SAP vendor, and then we have the GL account for both energy carriers assigned to the GL. So this is basically what we have to do to set up Clear Standard. And now we can go to the aspect to link the compliance scenario up to the data directly. And there you will see the structure I showed you earlier in the PowerPoint. And here I want to stop a little bit the video. So here you can see the administration building is hooked up to the electricity account with the account number. The manufacturing building is hooked up to a natural gas account and to an electricity account. And the compound equipment now is not hooked up yet. So we will show you how this works. because we have the information and the source ID already in Clear Standard. We just have to link them up by clicking on this link button, pulling the information for natural gas, and the same thing for electricity. So hook this up to the utility account. And then we can do a test reading here. So we pick a time frame, and just for test purposes can see if we can receive data from the utility company. And here we have the data for July 2023. So this is just for test purposes. So we have not read the information yet. And this is what we will show you in the next one. So the next step is then SAP environment management piece. So you see here the same structure we had in Clear Standard. And the only thing what we show you now is that you can not see anything. So we go into where the electric consumption should be shown. And here where the natural gas consumption should be shown, but you see there are no data yet. That's the point, right? So as soon the web link reads the information, these will be here. Here we are back to Clear Standard. So what we do in Clear Standard as well is we collect all the information so that you can pass your audits if you get audited for your greenhouse gases. So we collect here the statements. There is no statement because the link has not identified invoices yet. This is something we will show you in a second. So we talked a little bit, or I told you we were in SAP's environment management, and I think it's good to talk a little bit what SAP's environment management system is capable to do, because this is far beyond the discussion we have about scope 1 and 2. The greenhouse, the emission, the environment management is based on the regulatory requirements in SAP. So all other AHS modules are using the same functionality to use the regulatory database in SAP. And then you can line up your information against it and make sure that you are compliant. And with the specifically to the emission management, you can not only do greenhouse gases with these 7 different gases, but you can also do other air pollutions. We all still remember acid rain and things like this. So it's not only greenhouse gas we put out in the atmosphere, we also put some other stuff up in the atmosphere, what we can actually calculate and account for in SAP's emission management. And it goes beyond even the air, so we can do the same thing with water pollutants, waste generation, and so on and so on. So the environment management in SAP S4 is not limited to the greenhouse gas. It just appears in my demo this way because we are focused on the utility aspect of it, but there's actually much more possible in SAP with the environment management piece. So let's complete the scenario. So now we are back in Clear Standard. So first you will see here that we pull the PDFs from the utility companies. So we can go into the PDFs for audit purposes. This is also the place where we could hand off the invoice to your AP department to pay for it. We also keep the JSON files. That's actually the information we use to digitalize your carbon footprint calculation. And here are back in SAP. Now we will see the information have been passed on in the right format. So here we can see the electricity consumption. We can see the calculated data out of this. So the scope 2 emissions coming from the electricity. We can go into the natural gas consumption over the last month, and also go into the calculation of the scope 1 emission here. So last but not least, because we have these information all on the clear standard, we can also do some independent reporting there. So for example, if you want to do more on the intensity discussion or intensity calculation, that's something you could do here, or you can create different graphs in a more flexible way. Here in clear standard as well. You can pull them down as PDFs and go into more details and download the PDF or as Excel files or emails somewhere as well. So nice functionality what comes with clear standard here. So this concludes the demo part for clear standard. Another aspect we would like to show you is how this is integrated also into the other tools or other modules from SAP. Specifically to the footprint manager. So the footprint manager, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but the footprint manager allows you also to calculate the greenhouse gas emissions. So we could also provide the clear standard results directly to the footprint manager and then have the calculation happen there. Or in the demo, I will show you in a second, we linked it up to SAP S4 and we pull basically the result of the calculation from the S4 system and do then further calculations. The big advantage of the footprint manager is that you can incorporate all aspects of the greenhouse gases. So not only scope 1 and 2, but also scope 3 can be integrated. And you can also use it not only to calculate your corporate carbon footprint, but also your product carbon footprint. What is more and more important, there's a big discussion about scope 3 all over the place, but actually reality is that companies like Walmart or Costco or PepsiCo are asking already producers to provide information about the product carbon footprint. And this is something the footprint manager can do on mass scale. So I want to show you a little bit how this works. I'm probably logged out by now. But let's get into the footprint manager. So I told you we can import data quickly from S4. Want to show you how this works. I basically go into the import app and then can click here, pick the right scope. So in this case, we have a gummy bear production. We use the gummy production. We can define the time frame when we want to import it and then import the data in here. I have already imported some data to show you how this then looks like in the analytic part. So here you can see the footprint overview. For the example, we have pulled from clear standard from the utility companies into S4 and now pulled it into the footprint manager. And you see this is a little bit incomplete because we only address scope 1 and 2. We didn't talk about scope 3 at all. So and it shows you the consumption we had or the emission we had over the last months. So this is corporate level. Now the question is, how do we get this down to a product level? And there's something you have to understand how this actually works. So normally, if you allocate your carbon, so corporate carbon, you have the 3 different scopes and you break it down then to a product level. And what the common practice is that you use monetary aspects to do these kind of allocations if it comes to scope 1 and very often also to the scope 2. But you can do with scopes 2 and 3 also an allocation directly to the product. So if you know in what product line your product is produced, you can, of course, measure the electricity for the product line, and then you can allocate the scope 2 for this product line directly to the product which are produced there. And the same is valid for scope 3. So if you buy products which get incorporated into your product, you can allocate your carbon footprint directly to the product. So, and this is something the footprint manager allows you to do. And I have an example here what demonstrates this. Let's go to the footprint results. So here, let's pick plant. I have a bicycle plant here in Munich. I always forget to push the go button here. Anyway, so so here we can see in January 2023 in the plant Munich what carbon footprint we have created, and we can also see what kind of produce went in this month through the facility, and we can analyze which of these products had actually the biggest impact here. We can also see more details, a breakdown from what scope these carbon footprint comes from. So it's not just scope 1 and 2 as we had with the example with Clear Standard, but we have here also carbon footprint from purchased products, from waste generated things, and more. And now I can here go into more detail to analyze, okay, if the e-bike was the biggest contributor, where did this actually come from? And then can see that this is here what I have created in my plant by the assembly of this bike. So this is not the biggest part, but actually the biggest part comes here from the motor and the battery. And then I can click me through the information until I get to the supplier, and then I understand, okay, this is the supplier who provided me with 2 different kits in this plant, and can analyze what can be done to reduce the carbon footprint here maybe. So easy way to analyze the carbon footprint on the product level. Good. So this was a demonstration, collecting utility information, calculate them in S4, use them in the footprint manager. But there are things beyond what we can do even beyond this. I think the most important or most interesting part is really to, in the last bullet point here, to increase the frequency. As I mentioned at the beginning, greenhouse gas reporting is somehow something in hindsight. Basically, we see at the end of the year what happened. But with Clear Standard, if we can increase the frequency to use utility data, we can almost give real-time information to the users. And as you have seen with the footprint manager, this is really easy to use to analyze where these information are coming from. So if the sustainability team, for example, provides this kind of data, the employee in the company can really see what has the biggest impact and can act accordingly. Information from Clear Standard can also be used somewhere else for invoicing processes. We can calculate intensity key performance indicators. So very often you want to see not only to use less energy, but less energy per product. This is a kind of calculation we can do there as well, because we are integrated into SAP. We can pull the performance data and then run it against your greenhouse gas information. So at the end, always is the question, and what does this cost? And we have to confess, it's a little bit difficult to say, because it really depends on the question, how many facilities you have, how many utility providers, what kind of calculation process you want to run. So it's not easy to say, but to address this issue, we offer to do a business case with you. If you provide us with some information about utilities, facilities, and the calculation process, we will then return how much the solution will cost, how much the implementation will cost, but also because then we understand how much information you have to collect, we can do an ROI calculation and give you a time frame about the ROI effect. So if you are interested in something like this, feel free to shoot me an email, and then we can address this. Questions, answers.
Okay, if anybody has any questions, they can put them in the Q&A or just raise your hand and we can unmute the mic. And if there are none, maybe Klaus, you covered everything.
I don't believe this.
You left no questions.
People are shy. Now you can ask questions. My nervousness is gone, so I'm good. Here we go.
Here we go. Allow mic. Okay.
I think it was Chavez.
Yes.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so I had a question. I'm very interested in phase 3, or the scope 3. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So is that something you guys would be able to give us a quote on, or look at our business model?
So I think it would be good to understand what exactly you're referring. So the clear standard does not address scope 3 at the moment. So we are purely on scope 1 and 2. But there are solutions out for scope 3, and we would love to discuss with you how we can address them. So it's just a different topic, but yes, this is exactly what we're looking for. So we want to be engaged in this kind of discussions. We think it is necessary to digitalize this entire process to make it more efficient, and we want to help you to achieve that.
Okay, I'll reach out to you guys then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions out there? Well, I guess silence means
no questions.
No questions.
Yeah. Then I leave you with a picture of the day for Clear Standard as a platform between utility companies and your SAP system or your greenhouse gas calculations. And see you next time somewhere.
Very much. Thank you, everybody, for attending. And we'll see you next webcast. Thanks.